All right. We are live. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you here again today. We've got about a dozen questions today. So we're going to go through these questions, and I'll start with the announcements as always. A lot of people are saying, what happened last month with your Q&A? Why did it just cut at the end? I have absolutely no idea. I had full Wi-Fi connection, and I could see all of you guys typing, oh, it's buffering. Here I am carrying on with my flow, talking for another 10 minutes. And then I find out you couldn't hear or see anything I said. I don't know if it was because I was about to talk about something, I don't know, controversial or whatever, but all of a sudden my feed just got completely cut, and that's never happened before. So I don't know. But where is everyone from today? I love to hear from you all, where you all are. I am actually not in Las Vegas anymore. I'm not in LA. I'm not in Ventura County. I'm not even in San Diego. And I'm not in Lexington, where I was last week, Lexington, Kentucky. I'm now in Naples, Florida. So this is the first time I've ever been down here to Naples. So that's where I am at the moment. I just got here a couple of days ago. And so far, beautiful, beautiful. Loving it down here. So thanks for all the comments coming through. UK, living in Spain, Liverpool, Alabama. Great, amazing. Thanks everyone for being online on the live stream. The next thing I was going to mention was, you probably noticed, or you may not have noticed, my subscriber count was purged by a lot of people recently. And a lot of people were messaging on the private community and letting me know that YouTube had unsubscribed them from my channel. So if that has happened to you, just subscribe again, turn on the bell notifications so that you get all videos. But I don't know why that happened. I don't know why so many people got unsubscribed. It was a good few thousand people. So I don't know, maybe they're doing an update, who knows? And so there we go. Where else have we got? Manchester, Bulgaria, Dubai, Poland. Good. Israel, Oakland. Okay, good. Florida. Yep, I'm here. I'm here in Florida. Another person in Florida. And let's see what the last one was. Yeah, if you're not in the private community, I highly recommend joining. Tomorrow's video that comes out on Monday is an investment video. So I'll be talking about all different types of investments, how I'm investing this year, what I see risky. I'll be talking about gold, silver, housing market, stock market, cryptocurrency, all sorts of other investments. So as always, you can just join below. There'll be a link below the video. You can join the private community. You get to see all my private investments. You get to see everything I'm doing, what I'm holding, and all that sort of stuff. And then there's loads more. That we've got a full community, lots of different tabs and threads on Discord and all sorts of stuff. So honestly, there's tons. It depends how high in the tiers you join, but some people who are in like tier 5, they're getting stuff they're working on stuff every day, hours each day. So it's really up to you. You can just join at the very bottom if you want, just to get started. All right, good. Oh, we've got someone from my old city, Coventry, online. Lukash. Good. I don't know how it is over in the UK at the minute. I've not been there for a while. Okay, let's see the first question then. And remember, if you ever want to ask a question here, you can do that by joining the community, and I'll go through and answer any question. And I do mean any question, no matter how sort of controversial or unusual. I always answer all the questions. So there's probably a couple on this one today as well. I did a quick scan through earlier. I think there's one or two controversial ones. So the first one is from Dale. And it says, "Hi, Neil, thank you for all that you do to help me and many others. You are truly awesome at what you do." You know I've got to read this one out, guys, after all the negative comments on yesterday's video. Question, if you were to pick an investment between crypto and silver this week, which would it be? If crypto, which would you buy right now? I know you own some, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so here's what I'd say, Dale. I don't really invest on a week outlook. So you're asking, what would I invest in this week? I invest long term. So I look at, and Long term as well is different depending upon the investment. So crypto long term is maybe 6 months, 1 year, 2 year to me, but stock market or long term might be 5 years. Housing market long term is probably 15 years. So it really depends. So that's the first thing we've got to say. So if I was investing right now between silver and crypto, I would say it depends on your risk factor. So if you've got a high risk appetite, then cryptocurrency would be good for you, right? So if that's how you're looking at it, you've got excess cash, you can afford to lose it, then cryptocurrency might be good. If, however, you can't afford to lose any of that, then silver is probably going to be your best approach. And remember, silver is not necessarily an investment. It is a store of value. So this is for those of you who want to secure your capital, but you're just not sure how to secure it. Gold and silver does a good job at doing that. Because even if everything went bad and everything collapsed, which I can't see happening in the short term, gold and silver would still never go to zero. Never has, never will. It will never go to zero. So we'll always have some good value there. Cryptocurrencies, on the other hand, they're more speculative. You can make a very, very high return on them, but at the same time, they're very high risk. And a lot of people love to argue that with me and say they're not high risk. Well, look what happened last week. I was in Vegas, I think, I was in Vegas when this happened. And all of a sudden, the crypto market just tanked. And it wasn't just one dip. This was the first time I'd ever seen a double dip tank. And that was interesting for me, because I am aware that there is probably going to be some form of a big collapse in the crypto market at some point. I have no idea when. So I thought to myself, have I made a mistake here by not taking more capital out? And obviously it went back up. So the market is back up. Now, I've almost recovered to where I was before. So I think I've probably got another $50,000 to recover, which is not a lot if you knew how much crypto I've got. So I'm almost back to where I was. So that would be one point I would say, that you've got to invest based on your risk appetite. Okay. Next one is from Cindy. Do you have any ideas of what could happen to crypto? Another crypto question. When the dollar is no longer worth anything. In other words, how will anyone base the worth of a digital asset for purchasing power if there's no more fiat to base it on? I think, Cindy, this doesn't necessarily just apply to crypto. It can apply to anything that is a digital or an intangible asset. This could apply to, a stock certificate. You own stock in something. You don't own anything physical, tangible in your hand. What if there was no more dollars or euros or pounds? Well, to answer this question, I think we have to go back to history and we look at what's happened in other crises where currencies have just become worthless. And what happens under those circumstances? If you remember my Great Depression series that I did, I talked about what happened with the currency. Now, the dollar didn't become worthless. It just became so difficult to get any dollars. People were hoarding those dollars. So if you could get cash, you were very fortunate. So what did people use in the interim then? They used script. They used gold. They used silver. They had a barter system. People would swap. Oh, I'm a carpenter. I'll build you a table if you, the butcher, give me, some meat. Right. So all these things occurred during the Great Depression. So coming back to the question then, what would happen if the dollar just collapsed one day? And it will. All fiat currencies eventually go to zero. So what would happen under those circumstances to any fiat currency? People would just simply, human beings adapt very quickly. So they would revalue that item, whatever it was, into something different. So whether that's gold or silver, or maybe, here's a crazy thought, maybe they wouldn't revalue, let's say you had Cardano or Polkadot as a cryptocurrency or some other crypto. Maybe they wouldn't value that in US dollars. Maybe they would value it in Bitcoin, you see. And that could be the standard of what people value things in. Now, I don't know about that. As many of you know, I like cryptocurrency, but I don't hold a lot of Bitcoin. And that's mainly because I'm in cryptocurrency for the speculation aspect. I put in my money. I'm not looking to put in any more than what I've put in. As it's growing and growing and growing, once it reaches certain levels, I reallocate. I buy more speculative crypto I think are going to do well. I buy for the long term, watch it grow. And then I pull out and I buy tangible assets with it, like gold, right? And it's really funny that, as you know, one of the biggest challenges I have with running a YouTube channel, which I don't enjoy, is the trolling and all the negative comments that I get. I think yesterday I probably got 500 of these I had to read, which is a nightmare. But one thing with all of this, where was I going with that? I was just about to say something. Do you know what? I got so swept up just then in all the comments yesterday. I forgot what I was going to say, but I'll come back to it in a second. It'll probably come back to me. Yeah, I'm going to come back to that. Okay, next question was from Daniel. Hi, Neil. What is your exit strategy for silver? Thank you. Okay, so my exit strategy for silver is pretty simple. And that is, if you look at, say, the 2008 crisis, what happened was we deleveraged in terms of the housing market and the stock market came down. Now, what happened in polar opposite to that was the gold and silver market went up, because money always needs an outlet. You've got to remember that. And more specifically, there is no money anymore. The only money is gold and silver and things like that, right? So that's the only thing that we can really class as money. The rest is a fiat currency. It's not even just currency, it's fiat currency. So if we look at it from that point of view, in terms of silver and those things, in the deleveraging, all the money that you see as money is actually debt, and the debt just evaporates, sort of collapses upon itself. But in general, if it's not a complete deleveraging and it's just a recession and the stock market coming down, housing market coming down, what you tend to see, and again, the past doesn't necessarily dictate the future, but what you tend to see is that when those two asset classes come down, gold and silver goes up. And again, I'm saying this is theoretical because it may not happen the next time, but I've got a pretty good confidence level that it will. I do think that it probably will the next time. That's why I'm holding so much gold and silver, because I am fairly confident that they will go up. Now, am I expecting silver and gold to explode this year? No, I'm not. Now, there's certain things that could cause it to explode. Bond markets, treasuries, and the like. But will they is another question, and I don't have the answer to that. So when I do have the answer, like remember last year I said to everyone, buy silver now, and people thought I was nuts because I said it's going to go up double, because I analyzed all the the mines were closed, the supply shortages a year ago now, and that did come to pass. So there's certain things that I'm very confident on, and there's other things that there's just too many variables. There's too much manipulation that I can't really see it. So like the housing market, that's the video I put out yesterday, got the negative comments. People they don't like it when you don't have a solid answer. Like, even though the forecast was strong, I can't say that the US Federal Reserve, I don't know they're going to print $8 trillion. No one knows, right? You show me someone that actually said they were going to print $8 trillion way before, and I'll be very, very surprised by that. No one really knows. And someone told me, because I was talking to a friend earlier, and they said, did you ever hear the story of the weatherman that got like murdered? I was like, no. And he said, yeah, some weatherman said it was going to be sunny next Saturday for someone's wedding, and the bride was so upset because it rained that someone murdered this weatherman. I don't know if this is even a true story, but it was crazy. And then what happened was the next day it was sunny. And this is some of the things with life and investing for all of you. You never really know exactly what's going to happen. So this is why I always say to diversify properly and really study as much as you can about finance and money, because you never know what is going to happen. If someone comes in and they say, oh, let's just print a crazy amount of money, that money has to go into the economy. It can't just disappear. So, just a few things to think about there. Now, next question is from Amir. Hi, Neil. How can one be an intelligent renter under current circumstances? I've never heard this one before, Amir, so let me think this through. That is, you want to leave the city and wait for a housing crash before buying. City rents are dropping while prices elsewhere are surging. Want to know if there's a smart way to go about this. Thanks. Okay. This is a tricky one. Okay, well, firstly, you could be waiting for a very long time to buy. And this is the same thing I say to everyone. You could be waiting for a very long time to buy. And let me give you probably the best guidance you're going to get anywhere on what's happening right now and what the outcomes could be. And this applies to everyone. Either, number one, we go into a large-scale deleveraging when the emotion sort of comes out of the market. That's one option. And we're in a liquidity trap already with these very low rates and high levels of debt. So that would be a nightmare. I don't even know what would happen under those circumstances. That could happen. But we've got so much liquidity going around that it has to go into the stock market. It has to go into the housing market and other markets. The next thing that could happen is we could just go into this super high level of inflation, which goes into a hyperinflation. And at that point, that would be the end of the dollar. If it hit a hyperinflation, they'd probably reset it and all the other things. What else could happen? They could reset the currency. Everything could be reset. Being talked about, resetting the currency to a digital currency. Another option. Now, what could be the final option? That is that they raise interest rates. And not many people believe this is going to happen. Most people think, even if you remember my Peter Schiff interview, he thinks it's not going to happen at that rate because it will destroy the recovery. And I actually agree to some extent. I do believe that it will destroy the recovery. However, does that mean they won't raise the rates? No. There's always a tipping point. And I do think that they will raise the rates. I do. I don't think they're going to let the dollar collapse. I don't think they're going to let it go into a hyperinflation. I think once the rates get so bad, the inflation gets so bad, that at that point that they'll probably raise interest rates. And when this happens, you're going to see the crash that I've been talking about. And again, when I talk about a stock market crash way back, I've never given a date to it, not once, because I know you can't put a date on a stock market crash. It is not possible. If it was possible, you would see some people that are trillionaires walking the planet. They'd own all the money because they would short the market. They would buy here, sell there. They'd know exactly what to do. Not even some of these high-tech AI trading softwares know, because the stock market is emotional. The housing market is emotional as well. So these are all the things that you have to bear in mind. No one really knows. Now, housing market crash. A lot of people were upset over yesterday's video. But the fact is, there will be a housing market crash. It is going to happen. It's just not going to happen right now. So I thought it might happen here, sort of spring, sort of April, May through to the summertime. It's not going to happen. It's not, because there's too much liquidity. Now, if they didn't put all that liquidity into the market, would we see a housing market crash? And if they didn't do all the unemployment benefits and they didn't do all the stimulus, I believe with about 95% certainty, there would be a housing market crash right now, as well as a stock market crash. I'm almost certain of that. But when you have too much liquidity, this is where things like this stop. So it is a manipulated market. People call it a free market, including myself to some extent. But it's not a free market. It's a manipulated market. And until the manipulation leaves, it's always going to be like this. And you're always going to have these sort of risks. It's very difficult, very, very difficult. And I feel for all of you who have money that you don't know what to do with, or you don't know how to invest, because it's almost an impossible situation. Under normal circumstances, things would be pretty cut and dry. You might buy a second house that you're going to rent out. Easy. And you know that the price is going to go like that. slowly go up over 10, 20 years. You know that. Stock market. If the company's doing well, you know the stock's going to go up gradually. You can save money in the bank and they'll give you 10%. And then the bank will do something with the money. These are normal conditions. Now, right now, we don't have anything like that. So this is why you're all in this difficult situation. Every time I'm doing mentoring sessions every day, it's the same thing. Everyone is in these difficult situations. No one knows what to do. And it's because of manipulation. That's what it is. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's that everything is manipulated. And there's a lot of people at the top of this pyramid in the financial sector that are just taking a cut of all the money, creating all this debt. And a lot of this debt is being passed on to you and I as citizens of whichever country you're in. Is it fair? No, it's unfair. But that is the world we're living in. So coming back to Amir's question then, because I want to make sure I answer it. I personally am not buying right now, even though I'm traveling around and I'm looking at different houses and housing markets. I'm not actually buying a house anywhere, a new house, because I know there's going to be a housing crash. I know there's going to be a correction. I just don't know when. So yes, I could buy right now. And let's say the houses were to go up 10% in the next year. Let's just pretend they went up 10%. Is it worth the risk if houses dropped by, say, I don't know, 20 or 30% shortly after that, right? So you got a 10% gain. Yes, 20% gain. Amazing. Maybe you got a 30% gain. Amazing. But then the house prices dropped by more than that. Is it worth the risk? Have you really gained anything? Maybe you had a tenant in there, paid down the mortgage. Maybe you were in there and you paid down your mortgage. Maybe. It's a very topic. You've really got to weigh it up, use the mortgage calculators and things like that. But the bottom line is no one really knows the date of any crashes that are going to come or any booms right now, because unless they know exactly what Jerome Powell's going to do. If you know exactly what he's going to do, you can forecast anything. But the problem is no one really knows what he's going to do and what he's going to do next. Now, how does that affect other countries? Well, other countries hold US debt in their central banks. They then create their own currency against that debt. So that's why I say everything comes down to the USA. And that's why I talk about the USA a lot, because everything comes down to the USA and what they do. Everything. So Amir, I probably wouldn't be, if you're asking about an intelligent renter, I guess an intelligent renter would rent in the lowest place and get the best value for money whilst holding the money if you're selling a property or something. But would I sell now and hold the money? That's another question. I don't know. I mean, personally, as many of you know, I have a house in the US, I have a house in the UK. I haven't sold those. I did sell my rental portfolio, and a lot of people love letting me know how wrong I was on doing that and whatever. But look, I can afford to make one mistake out of 20 different investments. My portfolio is still up, 140%, something like that this year, 130% or whatever it was last year. So I think we can all afford to with our investments as long as we still grow them. So I think that probably answers that question. But just one last thing. If you're concerned about a big debt collapse or anything like that, I probably an apartment in a big city, right? If everything went bad, because I know, Amir, you've asked questions before and you're concerned about everything collapsing and going bad and things like that. For me personally, if I had that concern, I would rather be out of the city. I'd rather be quite rural and, having a garden like I have at, my house. I'd rather have a garden and things like that so I can grow things. Or if I wanted to, this is, maybe crazy talk here for the future, but let's say everything just collapsed. Everything around us just collapsed. This was the worst case scenario. I'd rather have a garden and some chickens or something like that than have absolutely nothing, being in an apartment and there's gangs, marauding the streets and things like that. So I think that's probably one way to look at it. What do you feel? You've always got to go by your feelings as well. You've got to look at your emotion as well as the logic. So you've got to really decide what you feel deep down in your heart is going to happen. And if you are concerned, and one of the things that is stressing you or keeping you awake is whether or not something bad's going to happen in the future, you're best off just getting rid of that worry and stress and moving to somewhere more rural now than living in an apartment and just hoping every day nothing bad's going to happen. But again, just my thoughts on that. Okay, Michael Lodziana. Hi, Neil. Do you think the Biden administration's plan to forgive up to $10,000 in student loans per person will contribute to rising inflation? Knowing the average American consumer, I have a feeling they'll use this free money to make frivolous purchases. Well, firstly, Michael, no, that wouldn't result in inflation. It would result in deflation. Because what you're thinking is that they have the money, the people, but they don't. That's what debt is. It's credit. So the person has taken credit, i.e. therefore becoming debt, and they're then using that money to pay for something. No one ever takes debt just to put it in their bank account. They take it to do something with it. So they took it, they had it in their bank account, and they paid it to the university or the college or whoever for their tuition. And then they got a return from it. They got education. So they don't have the money. And if that is the case, and the administration gave $10,000 of forgiveness, to be honest, I don't think this will make a huge impact, because if you look at the average student debt, is huge. I speak to a lot of students. Some of them have got over 100,000. A friend of mine, he went through dentistry school. He's got $250,000 debt that he's paid most of it off now, but that's what his debt was. So they're not going to get the 10,000 anyway, and therefore spend it, which would help with inflation. So this is deflationary, because when you destroy debt, which is what they would do, you destroy part of the currency in the world or in the USA. So it's deflationary. It's not inflationary. Okay, good. That was an easy one. Barry Abrahamson. Hi, Neil. Is it relatively easy for a UK resident to purchase land or a house in the USA? How do you go about getting a loan in the US if you're not a US resident and don't have a US bank account? So different countries have different rules. I won't just specifically mention the USA here, but for example, you could go to a Southeast Asian country like Thailand, and you can't buy a house. You could only buy a condo, because you can't own land, but you can own a condo, for example. And that applies in a lot of countries. Now in the USA, I actually bought a house when I was in my early 20s. Sorry, a condo in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is ironic because I'm in Florida right now. And I bought a condo there. I didn't even know that I could buy it as a non-citizen myself, but you can. Now, how do you get a mortgage for something like that? Well, I bought it cash at the time, so I didn't get a mortgage. But I know right now that, because I've got a few clients who are buying sort of a bigger residential units in the USA, they're going to turn them into commercial units. So they're getting redevelopment rights and things like that on it. And what they are getting is something like a foreign investment mortgage. So HSBC is a good example. They do foreign investment mortgages for residential. And then once you've got that, you can then refinance to, say, a commercial mortgage or a commercial finance on that property. So that's just an example. There's lots of different ways to do it. But it would be a foreign investor mortgage, for example. Okay, Joseph Kavanagh. Hey, Neil, so grateful for your insights. Question: with the spot price of silver manipulated and the premium for physical silver growing higher and higher, is it possible that this is the market's way of equalizing things and the premiums continue to rise as the spot price is suppressed? Almost like you have the fake value spot and the real value. Yeah, so it's no surprise to anyone that we all know the COMEX manipulate the silver market. That's what they do. They issue hundreds of silver contracts for one real piece of silver, 1 ounce of silver, let's say, or gold. So they do suppress the market and they do manipulate the market. But is that what's going on right now? Maybe. Remember, whenever you have a question on anything, always go back to the simple thing I always teach, supply and demand. And this applies to any market, supply and demand. So what's happening right now is that there is a large demand of silver, physical silver. What are they lacking is a supply. So there's more demand than there is a supply. So this is business. A lot of the silver bullion places, they are simply just not lowering the prices, or they're increasing the premium because they know there is a higher demand than there is a supply on it. So I think it's probably more likely that is what the situation is, as opposed to sort of manipulation by the COMEX and other players here. I think that's probably the most likely thing going on. Okay. Next question is from Norma. In your crypto video, you had advised using a VPN, which is a virtual private, for added security when online with our accounts. Primarily when we are not in our home, i.e. just public Wi-Fi, at all times when online with any banking. Okay. Well, it's not as important when you're at home. It's still important to have it on, but it's not important to have it on all the time when you're at home. I mean, I personally do, because my VPN, it just goes on automatically. So I have it on all the time. But it is really when you're doing anything finance-based on public Wi-Fi. Now, is it likely someone's going to drive up to your house, sit outside and try and hack your Wi-Fi? And they don't even need to do that these days. They could hack it through the internet anyway. Not really, not unless someone's targeting you. But personally, I just use it all the time. It doesn't really make a big deal. You just have it turned on and that's it. So for me, I just leave it on personally. Next question is from Martin Doherty. Hi, Neil. Thank you for your videos on cryptocurrencies. A lot of crypto questions today. I'm curious on these and nervous about investing and distinguishing between one versus the other. My question, though, is that we are advancing in artificial intelligence, where it is apparently doubling every 18 months. What are the risks to cryptocurrency is if AI is used in it? Gosh, this is a big question here, Martin. If AI is used in advanced cyber warfare in the future, surely cryptocurrencies and their networks are exposed here. I think you're probably connecting two things here that aren't necessarily connected. You know, anything can be connected in some way, but are they predominantly connected? I would say no. Your biggest risk with AI is not around cryptocurrency, it's around cyber warfare. And one of the mistakes I think the USA have made recently is they're doing all this stimulus and they're just wasting the money. They're wasting the majority of the money. If it were me, I would have said, right, let's get this recovery going. AI, cyber stuff, all sorts of tech, biotech and all this. Not that I like biotech at all. I don't. But these are the things that are going to grow in the future. And would I want to be left behind as a country? That's another question. So I think that's the biggest thing here. China are miles ahead in terms of their infrastructure and their growth rates. So I think they're going to overtake the USA. And as I keep saying, people who keep saying that we're going to have these, wars in the future, and there's going to be all, military troops on the ground and all this, it's really not. The next big war way out into the future is going to be drones and, airborne drones, ground drones and things. Why do you think, and this always makes me laugh, that DARPA keeps sponsoring all these robotics challenges, and they want these like Terminator type things made, and they say, oh, it's for, search and rescue and moving rubble and things like that. Come on, get real, guys. That's not why they're getting these things. Why would they care about that? They've got that. There's people that have those jobs already to do search and rescue. Obviously, having something in your, it needs to be able to carry a spanner or a wrench. Yeah, what do you think that wrench is going to be replaced with in the future? So I think that's probably the biggest risk we have, is cyber warfare in the future, which is through the internet and the like. But also it will be drones and things like that. We really are building our own demise with everything going on at the moment. But there we go. Okay, Forrest Wolf. He always brings me controversial questions. So let's see what he's got today. Hi, Neil. The World Economic Forum has warned of an upcoming cyber pandemic, breakdowns of power and internal grids, etc. Internet grids, sorry. And there may be a dry run exercise called Cyber Polygon 2021 on July 9th, 2021. What are your insights on this as a potential markets crash trigger, assuming it actually happens? Okay, well, first and foremost, I hear these sort of stories all the time, over and over again. People say, oh, look at this QAnon type thing here. What do you think? Almost every single one out of hundreds of these things, I always say the same thing. I don't believe it. I just think this is nonsense. And then what happens is it doesn't come true. And they say, oh, it didn't come true because, this dog ran across the street and the guy that was meant to be there, he went to rescue the dog, and just ridiculous stories. The only one that has come true that I watched a long time ago was they said, oh, there's going to be this big pandemic and there's going to be all this and blah, blah, blah. Now, was that just pure coincidence? I have no idea. Could be, it might not be. I couldn't say. If you say enough things often enough that are quite out there, one of them's going to come true, right? This is just the law of statistics. So do I think that this is going to, what was it called again? Cyber Polygon? No idea. And even if it did, they would literally have to stop the electricity in the grid in every single country all at once. And what about people with generators? Let's say they wanted to stop cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. Well, if someone's got a generator hooked up to their computer, well, how are they going to turn the electricity off to that? So I don't know. I don't know if these, someone said to me about the Dallas thing a few days before this big snowstorm. I don't know how they knew, but they said, oh, there's going to be this big ice storm and they're going to reset the stock market and all this. And I said, yeah, okay, sure they are. I'm sure they're going to reset the stock market. These are the stories I get every day. And fair enough to them. They were right about this blizzard that no one saw. I don't know how they knew that. But did it reset the stock market? No. It just caused a lot of issues and brought to the forefront things like the green energy. A lot of the green energy didn't work and things like that. They had to put, I won't get into the whole story. You probably know about it. I'll probably talk about it a little bit this week in the private community, what happened there. And actually in tomorrow's investment video, for those of you who are in the community, I'm going to be talking about energy, a lot about energy and how I think you should invest in energy going forward. You might be surprised by what I say. I've never talked about this stuff before, and I've done a little bit more research, and I think there's going to be some changes. Okay, so that's that. Next one is from Simon. Hi, Neil. As a non-technical person who wants to get involved in the crypto movement, do you have any idea of new types of businesses that could thrive in this new environment to start as a side hustle? I don't know if that's one thing you're asking, Simon, or two, because you're talking about crypto, but then you're asking about a new business in this new environment. So I'm just going to discount the first part and talk about the new environment then. I'm assuming that's what you mean. Well, everything has changed in the last year. And I think everything will change again in the next 2 years. The There's going to be a lot of movement. We've already seen the collapse of a lot of businesses. And one video I'll probably put out next week or the week after I'm going to talk about is why it's so bad when you go into restaurants at the moment. I'm not criticizing any of you who are restaurant owners, okay? But if you've been to a restaurant recently and had a bad experience, there's a reason why. And it's quite a detailed thing that's going on there with staffing and people being at home, don't want to work, etc. I'll talk about that shortly. But in terms of a business, I think anything to do with tech is going to do well. So whether you're a self-employed contractor, whether you have a limited company, an LLC, it doesn't really matter. I think anything to do with tech as we go forward, AI, biotech, robotics, all of these things are going to be needed in the future. I think it's going to be, a new type of arms race. But if you want something like a small hustle and you don't have those skill level, you could do something like property. Many of you don't know this because I don't really talk about it, but I have something called the propertycashflowacademy.com. And there it's all about Airbnb, how you run Airbnb, how you do lease options and deal sourcing and packaging, how you do multiple occupancy rental houses, how you work with the local governments to help, different types of groups of people with housing and stuff like that. I have different businesses that still do this stuff today. And they work really well. And if you just want to do it as a side hustle, I don't do it as a side hustle. I have it as a proper company. So I have staff in each company. We have big teams of tradespeople and experts in different things. But you could do this as a side hustle. You could do one Airbnb property or something like that. You don't even need to buy the property. You could do a commercial lease agreement, a service accommodation rental agreement. If anyone's interested in any of this stuff, I have all this stuff on my website. You can watch free webinars. You can do the first part of these courses for free, etc. And if you're in the community, the private community, you get a discount on the courses anyway. So that's propertycashflowacademy.com if anyone is interested in any, doing a little side hustle, earn a little bit of money on the side. So next question, VVK. Hi, Neil, could you share how you manage your realized capital gains to reduce the amount that gets leached away by the tax office? Oh, next bit. Interested in how you applied this to the crypto you sold recently. Okay. There's a little bit more here. Discount. Okay. Well, the first thing that I always say is get yourself a really, really good, strong accountant. It is a false economy to get a cheap accountant. I learned this the hard way when I sold my first business and when I was selling off some of my houses. I learned this the hard way years and years ago. And this isn't the houses that I've sold on this cycle. These were, if you remember the question I always ask you, if you didn't own it today, would you buy it today? And that can apply to any asset. So if you didn't own it today, would you buy it today? And that's the question I asked about some of the houses that I used to own when I was in my early 20s. And the answer to a lot of that question was no. So I wanted to get rid of those houses and buy some better properties that would perform better. And I got hit with capital gains and all this other stuff. Now, if I had a good accountant, I could have avoided a lot of the taxes I paid on the business sale and, income and, capital gains and all this sort of things. But also, depending on your country, you've got to understand that it's realized capital gains. This is the key word. So if, let's say you put 100,000 into cryptocurrency and that 100,000 goes to 200,000 and then you pull out that 100,000 back to your bank account, do you have any capital gains tax to pay? No, because this is not realized. And again, I'm talking generically here. It may differ country to country. So what happens is this then will probably grow and grow and grow. And in the future, when you then sell this, then you're going to have capital gains and it will be realized. But for me, I have a lot of plans. Some people agree with, some people don't agree with, and that's tax havens. So I think in the future, I probably won't have to pay a lot of the the capital gains and things like that that I'm accumulating right now, because I will buy a property in a tax haven or something like that, and I won't have to pay half of my money to the government, who, what do? They take no risk at all when you're taking the risk with your money. But as soon as you make a profit, oh, hello, come on, show us the 50%, 45%. So do I agree with giving them half of the money and half of the gain? No. I think something like 20%, even then I don't want to give it. Maybe 10, 15% is reasonable. But once you get to 45, 50%, these sort of numbers, that's crazy talk. No. So I will always try and mitigate the amount of tax that I pay. I don't think that's immoral. I think the problem is the government. They are too big and too expensive, and they don't invest money properly. They don't send things out to tender and get the best deal, because it's not their money, so they don't care. They just spend and squander the money, yours and your money, my money. They just squander it. So do I want to give them my money to squander? No, that would be ridiculous. So I think get yourself a good accountant would be my best guidance there. Okay, next question is from Stephen Hudson. Does the present UK government, in your opinion, actually care about the health of the self-employed business sector? I always look at governments based on their actions and not their words, because talk is cheap, but actions are not. Actions are very difficult. So anyone can say they're going to do something and then they never do. That's the thing with politicians. They always say the things that will get them elected and then they never really do it. So how do we apply that to the self-employed sector in the UK? Well, last springtime, when the government was giving out the 10,000, 20,000 grants to business owners that had physical locations, they were giving out all sorts of other grants to employees and furlough and this and that. They gave the self-employed sector zero, absolutely nothing. So the actions tell you what they think of the self-employed sector. It was only because so many self-employed people lobbied, may not be the right word, but just went at the government non-stop, causing them a lot of hassle. They eventually were like, oh gosh, we're getting too much going on here. There's just too much admin and too much stress from all these people. I think that's probably why they did it. I don't think they did it to help people. I think they probably just did it to stop all the annoyance they were getting from people, which I think is a good thing. Just keep pestering the government on anything that you don't like they're doing. Just waste their time. So do they really care about the self-employed sector? Most politicians, I'm not saying all, because there are some good ones, most politicians don't really care about the people in general. They care about themselves. And you see this when, I'll tell you a perfect example. If you remember, maybe 6 months ago, I said that there was this big petition. We got 100,000 signatures to cut down the politicians of the UK's wages by 20%, because not to cut by 20%, but to put it in line with the furlough. So the furlough was where employees had some of their wages paid by the government, so the business didn't have to pay it. So it was maybe 80% of the wage. It went down to 60%, etc. So we all said, oh, well, why we should bring the politicians' wages in line. So theirs goes to 80 to 60%. And we got enough signatures to pass that. So it went through the House of Commons to pass it. They had to debate it. What did they do? Does anyone remember what they did? They said, this is not appropriate at the time. We're not going to be doing it. We're not going to be discussing it because of COVID. What? Sorry? What has COVID got to do with this wage policy? What has it got to do with anything? It's a bit like when I called my internet provider before I went away, and they said, oh, sorry, sir, for the hour-long wait. It was an hour long because, sorry, it's because of COVID. And I said, what, COVID's affecting your Wi-Fi, or you're picking up your calls, the call center? Yes, it is. How's it doing that? Oh, so it's just COVID, so many things. It's COVID. No, tell me specifically what about COVID is causing you to not be able to answer the calls. Oh, well, everyone's working from home now. Yeah, but you've still got the same amount of staff, right? Yes, we have, but they're working from home and COVID. Do you get where I'm going with this? All these people and the government and companies, they're using it as any sort of scapegoat. There is no link to certain things. There is no link to debating the wages or reducing the wages. There is no link to answering calls, but they'll use that excuse for everything. So next question. Jared H. Smith, last question actually. And then I will look if there's a couple of questions on the stream. What path and planning did you take and use in building your Patreon community? I.e., since I'm trying to do something similar for a different niche market, can you provide any detailed guidance on what you do differently if you had to start over and build the service and community from scratch? What I'll do, Jared, rather than talk about that specifically, because most people are not going to be interested in that, how I'll answer this is, if people online wanted to build a form of passive income, and again, passive's not the right word, I'd say residual. Residual is the right word, because there is no such thing as passive income really, although a lot of the marketing gurus like to say there is. So how did I build it, or how can any of you build some sort of a residual income? The first thing is to get a community. And even before you get a community, you need to know what you have expertise in, and then talk about those things and build a community. And it's actually very easy to do in today's world because of all the free technology that we have that we didn't have before. Like, I built my finance community purely through YouTube. That's it. And although me and YouTube have butt heads occasionally on things, I have got to thank them for helping me to grow my audience, which grew my private community. And when my YouTube income just crashed to almost zero, I make almost nothing from YouTube now. And it raises the question, is it worth me doing it, especially when I get a lot of trolling nonstop every day? But that's one of the benefits of it. Of something like YouTube, you can build a community, and then you can move that community into a private community where you can say what you want. You can open it up, just like you've seen in our community. There isn't anything that's off the table. We have even a controversial area, and we allow freedom of speech. If people want to talk about stuff that's controversial, we just tell other people, don't go in there if you're going to be offended by stuff. It is allowing that freedom of speech to come back again. So I think my best guidance would be, I probably wouldn't do anything different if I was doing it again. And to look at what you have some expertise in, or what you enjoy talking about. Look at who would have thought that gamers would be able to build such big platforms and people playing games and other people watching them. Probably a lot of you watching the stream right now do it, or watch gamers. Who would have thought you could earn a full-time income from that? I think the key thing is finding something that you are good at and that you can enjoy doing, and then turning that into some form of a residual income. I really think that's the key thing to it. And then just having the integrity there. If you make a mistake, you've got to put your hands up to it. You can't just pretend it didn't happen. You've got to explain why. So there's a lot of things around that. Yeah. All right, let's go to, that's all the questions. So that was quite an easy one this week, this month. Nothing too challenging for me there. But let's look if there's any questions coming through. Happy to answer a few. What's a good gold to silver ratio? There isn't really such a thing as a good gold to silver ratio, David, just seeing your question here. It varies throughout time, but let me say this. When you see what I saw was a silver ratio going zoom up to way over 100 to 1, you want to buy silver at that point. It's either that or the gold has crashed down. One of them, so something's gone wrong when you've got a crazy ratio going on. Okay. But yeah, it's good to just swap. I know people who have swapped their way. That's why I like allocation accounts, actually, because I like to be able to swap my silver to gold and gold to silver when the ratio does deviate quite heavily. I know people who have swapped their way up to having huge portfolios by doing that. Okay, any questions coming up? Would I rather have 100,000 in Bitcoin or 100,000 in Ethereum? No question whatsoever, Ethereum. Absolutely no doubt in my mind, Ethereum is the one for me. Is the Dow, so this is the Dow Jones, now at its peak, up or down? Well, if you remember, Derek, back in, I think it was February or March time, I made that video. It was a little bit controversial, but I said, I'm going to go against what the economists are saying about a crash in April to the stock market. They were talking about the 10-year treasuries and all this other stuff. And I said, it's not going to happen. I just don't see it. And Harry Dent said, I will quit my job if I'm wrong or whatever. You should watch that video. It's on not Kitco, Stansbury Research. I will quit my job if I'm wrong. And I said, I'm going to go against Harry and what he said. The stock market will not crash in April. There's no way it's going to happen. Because of all the new currency, all the new stimulus and everything being printed, going into the stock market. And it's going to continue to do it. I'll tell you when I think the stock market's going to turn around. I can't give you a date, but I think it's going to turn around when they get even a sniff that the QE is over. Like, there's no more printing, there's no more bailouts, there's no more any of this. If they get even a sniff of that, that's it. You're going to see the market turn around. Or simply raising interest rates. If they put interest rates up by 2%, for example, I would say 95% sure there's going to be a correction in the stock market. And then the housing market will follow as well, because you're going to price out a lot of people from buying houses, and people are going to start. 2% probably isn't enough to do a huge. No, it probably is. It probably is. That could bring the housing market down 15 to 20% in a worst case scenario. So yeah, it's possible. Tony Shepard, do you think central bank digital currency will force crypto underground or totally eliminate it? This is the debate that keeps going on over and over again. Will cryptocurrency be forced out? I think we can look at what's been happening in other countries, India and some other places, where they're making it illegal to own cryptocurrency. Does that mean all the people in India are going to just get rid of their crypto? No, of course they're not. Even if it's, prison sentence, things like that, you always get people that they don't care. They will still hold it. Remember in March 1933, I think it was, when the US government said, gold confiscation, we're going to confiscate gold. It's illegal. You've got to put it all in and all this. Loads of people didn't give in their gold. So I don't know. It's a good question. I think no one really knows the answer right now. But if I had to bet on it, if I was told, right, you've got to bet, your life is on the line, and if you get it wrong, you're going to die, I would probably put my life on the government's making cryptocurrencies either illegal or highly, highly regulating it. That's why you've got all the KYC and everything going through at the moment. Why are US citizens not allowed to use Binance.com? Why are a lot of platforms not allowed to be used? I think it's only a matter of time. The Federal Reserve were too slow, and the government were too slow on the crypto thing. They didn't. Either it's a big conspiracy and they've planned it all, which is possible. I have no idea. Or they were just too slow to do what needed to be done to stop it all. So who knows? Why can't you buy XRP on Coinbase, Tiana? That is to do with the SEC investigation, which is just about wrapped up now. Not quite. It's just about. There's a few little bits going on there. But that's why you can't. But they'll probably relist it again in the future. You can get it on other platforms. I've got probably about $11,000 worth of XRP, something like that. I have maybe 50 to 60 different cryptocurrencies. So I have all sorts. I have some that are long-term hold, some that are very speculative. My best performing one at the moment is Anchor, ANKA, KR. That's performed really well. I'm up 2,000%. I think I put not a lot, maybe a few $1,000s in, and it's probably worth, whatever it is now, it's gone up a lot, 2,000%. Okay, anything else? Let's see. Okay, cool. That looks like it. Doesn't seem to be many more questions coming in, but of course, I'll do this again next month. Every month I do these. So thank you so much for being online today, guys. Really appreciate you. Thanks for clicking the like button and sharing this video with your friends. I hope you got a lot out of it. And if you're not in the community, I'll see you next month. For the community members, tomorrow is the big investment video. It's about 45 minutes long, coming out tomorrow. So enjoy, and I'll see you all in the forum. Take care. God bless.